Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about Hedera and HBAR, so let's just dive in. Let's first off start with the overall price action. So I've been watching most of the market quite a bit recently, and HBAR is one of those tokens that I have been keeping a close eye out on ever since we did hit, almost a 9 cent zone, and then we rejected off of it, obviously due to the token unlock. And since then, I've seen a lot of individuals get extremely bearish on HBAR, calling for astronomical lows, even lower lows than November, which, by the way, or I should say December technically, but it started in November when FTX collapsed. But um, nonetheless, when I look at a lot of this market, I do believe, from my personal opinion, as we have been addressing this even in the Discord, that we basically seen our bottom previously before FTX. And what I mean by that is on most of the market, we've seen our bottom before FTX happened. Ethereum is a perfect example of this. Now, yes, most altcoins did lag behind and they ended up bottoming around November and December. If we actually go over here real quick to Ethereum, when we go back to the all-time chart, so here is the summertime on Ethereum. Again, like during this time, a lot of people believe that this was our bottom on Ethereum. I would tend to agree. I mean, when we look at most of this market, I think that we're at that point in time where it's kind of accumulation before the next major price movements. Now, I do expect Bitcoin to have a slight pullback here in the short term. Is it going to affect HBAR too much? It's questionable, right? Because as we look at HBAR, again, I think that this one wants to really break out. I've been looking at the weekly for this, and what I've been addressing, even in the Discord and on my Patreon, is the fact that as we look at the overall chart here, we're back into this demand zone, and this demand zone was where we were at before the FTX collapse, which is this candle right here. Um, Now, that's the only thing that I would assume causes a reaction like this right now in the market is some sort of major collapse or black swan event. But besides that, where we are at currently and where our major candle bodies have been lying is right on resistance going all the way back to August of 2020. I like that we're riding this right now, and on the weekly, by the way. So as we look here, on the weekly, by the way, we have found this area of support for over 21 days. So what we are basically waiting for is a spring off of this area because right now we're just riding between support and the EMAs. And usually when we break over these EMAs, we target the next one. We started to peek over them slightly here, coming down for liquidity as well, targeting the bottom support zone going all the way back to October and September. And if we do break out of this EMA, then yes, I do assume that 9 cents would essentially be the next major target up here at the 50 weekly EMA. Now, the question is, after that, where do we go? Well, mainly I'm just looking at wherever the demand lies. And technically speaking, the demand is around like the 15-cent zone all the way up to possibly 18.5 cents. So that's a big area of opportunity if you actually think about it from our level right now, because this is where mainly I would be looking at HBAR pumping into, and from our current price right now that we are at, and even off the bottom support zone, this is well over a 100% gain, almost a 200% gain at the top here. But I think that HBAR is going to perform pretty well going into the next major bull run. I think that most of the major token unlocks are finished, or at least we could assume so, until 2024. And when we look at the overall token supply, we're sitting at about 60% out in the public. Now, yes, during 2021, we were expecting a lot more price action than what we got. The craziest thing about this is that during this time here, we ended up seeing a large amount of the tokens being unlocked for HBAR, and then what we seen was a ton of FUD around it, talking about insider selling and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I do think that the token unlocks definitely stifled the price action of HBAR. And again, it was unexpected because what we were going off of was the token unlocks in the schedule. But nonetheless, going into the next major bull run, I think that we have quite a bit to go off of. One thing that was extremely bullish that we just recently seen was this announcement from Hedera. And we do see today at the President of the United States' Summit for Democracy, Hedera has made a commitment to convene a democracy roundtable on how blockchain technologies can and are supporting human rights, transparency, and sustainability through DLT-enabled applications. And what better, platform to talk about this with than Hedera? Because when we look at Hedera, it is one of the greenest and most sustainable DLTs within this space, and it has been supporting a ton of incredible use cases around the real-world application zone within enterprises. And we do see down here, Hedera will invite companies, trade associations, advocacy groups, academics, and also government officials share a summary of the discussion and make recommendations for the next steps towards improving accountability, fighting misinformation, and reducing data manipulation with DLT. Governed by world-leading institutions distributed across 6 continents representing multiple industries, Hedera aims to become an integral layer of the emerging Web3 world built on a decentralized foundation that is fast, sustainable, and also secure. Now, within this, what I actually love to see is the companies that are directly right next to Hedera. It's actually insane. But this is one thing that I've always focused on when we look at Hedera. Like, it's next to some of the largest names out there that most people know about, like, for example, Cloudflare. We also see Ford Foundation here. Then we have Hedera next to Meta, Microsoft, and I mean, it's incredible to see it having this substantial of a name, where it is literally tied to some of these other names, or at least sitting next to some of these names. But it also provides a little bit of an insight on just how large, in my opinion, Hedera will be at some point in time. And we do see Hedera convening democracy roundtable on how blockchain technologies support human rights, transparency, and also sustainability. Hedera commits to convening a democracy roundtable on how blockchain technologies can and are supporting human rights, transparency, and sustainability. And then they do talk a little bit about this, basically what I just read in terms of the tweet. But as I've said, like, this is what you want to see. Like, this is what I personally look forward to seeing when we talk about Hedera, is them sitting next to some of the most prestigious names out there, or some of the largest companies that most people, if anything, know about. It's also another reason why I said, like, Hedera is one of those names that I do believe is a blue chip stock and ultimately will be a household name. Now, also within that announcement, we did get met with this one. So the interesting thing about this isn't so much the project itself, but trust me, the project itself is very big. But one thing that I would love to note here is that Fresh Supply Co. AU, or FSCO, if you will, which is the largest user of the MasterCard Provenance and partner of Combank, has migrated from the private MasterCard blockchain to Hedera for real-world asset tokenization. Now, let's take a step back. One thing that I've always made clear to mention whenever we talk about Hedera is not how, compared to other blockchain networks, right? I never compare Hedera to other blockchain networks in terms of its sustainability and energy efficiency, because we have seen that time and time again. Instead, I compare it to Visa, because Hedera is greener than Visa. It uses less energy than the Visa network. And now we have a use case that is actually moving away from the MasterCard blockchain to Hedera, which is crazy because, and I'm not comparing Visa to MasterCard, but they're both in the same sort of lane, if you will. But I find this interesting because we are seeing a company not move from Ethereum to Hedera, which we've seen in the past. This is literally MasterCard, one of the largest companies out there. And they're coming over here to Hedera from MasterCard's blockchain. That's huge. And we do see traditionally the agri-food value chain covering the full process of producing, processing, and distributing agricultural products from farm to fork has been complex and opaque. As a result, financiers have been limited to balance sheets and P&L during credit risk assessment. Now, through FSCO, basically all of the events and things like that will be able to be tracked, tokenized, all that kind of stuff with full transparency. And we do see by tokenizing assets and events throughout the agri-food supply chain at scale, FSCO is actively digitizing food production and trade, enabling complete transparency and deep verifiable data for financiers. And I just want you guys to understand like how big this is. First off, let's talk about the big thing, transactions. Think about how many transactions this will boast in terms of a use case, but then also think about how large of a use case this is in the real world. This will most likely spread everywhere. The supply chain of tomorrow will be built out on DLT like Hedera. And I've always said, like, we've talked about supply chain being disrupted, from Hedera's side because of the efficiencies around Hedera. And now we're basically seeing that. And also, we do see down here that FSCO is migrating the whole of its existing business onto Hedera, leveraging both the HCS and the HTS service. And then here we have the CEO talking about the integration and their plans for Hedera in this update with the HBAR Bull. But by the way, I just want to say, go check out the HBAR Bull over on Twitter as well as over on YouTube. Incredible channel, incredible insights. And again, if you're an HBAR fan, if you're an HBAR holder, whatever, go check them out. Incredible platform. Love all the insights. I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and they're very insightful. It gives you a ton of information on a lot of things happening around the Hedera ecosystem, so definitely go and check that out. But listen closely to this.
Well, we're a B2B fintech. We're using data for a hopefully more sophisticated approach to supply chains. We're extracting critical information from within organizations in the agri-food and commodity spaces. Those encompass aspects like proof of existence, proof of work, proof of supply, proof of quality, proof of specification. And we employ this data to activate conditional event-based payment triggering. And so that streamlines financial processes. There's also the benefits of capitalizing on automation and data accessibility to enhance credit risk assessment methodologies. This is the next part, triggering payment, right? So it's not just capturing the information, it's what does that information do? So, okay, well, and then being able to quantify that. So quantify that now on chain, which is one of the reasons we've moved to HBAR, specifically selected HBAR to more in a more granular way describe what are the debt obligations between two organizations, party A or party B, X amount for these types of good. What are the goods that are linked to them, right? When will that debt mature? What is the quality of that debt, right? So payment triggering is another a big piece, and I can't share too much, but there will be a part two around the kind of Mastercard story. But Mastercard Provenance was a private permissioned blockchain, and we see that the space is moving to public, right? So public ledger, we like the speed, we like the efficiencies, and also around the ESG benefit, right? Low energy, stable costs, stable gas fees, etc. Right? So let me go back. There's two parts: capturing information, and then the number two, triggering payments off the back of data. Right? So that facilitates payments that facilitate finance or lending.
So, what should we expect to see from Fresh Supply Co. in terms of Hedera network usage? As in, what services do you leverage, and what kind of volumes could we expect?
And then from a data perspective, I mean, we deal in tokenization of large amounts of physical goods. So real world assets is another theme. So I would say enough, and you won't be disappointed.
So yeah, I mean, I love these companies and I love these use cases because it's so much larger than what most people anticipate. I think one of the biggest problems with crypto is a lot of people they just want the big use cases. They want the headline use cases. For an example, a big one is always, well, I want to see all of the money move over this network, right? That's a big hype train discussion. And the truth of the matter is that payments and money transfer as a service, if you will, it's big. It's a huge use case. Um, but it's not exactly what most people make it out to be. I love to see these use cases, the use cases that make the world go round, if you will, because these will boast massive amounts of transactional volume as well as value. And we're already kind of seeing that. Like, if you go over to the HBAR Foundation's website and you go to the ecosystem here and you look at some of these these funds that they have, these are incredible use cases that are so much larger than just what your typical use cases would be. Another one is like always microtransactions. We've talked about microtransactions because although yes, these are small value transactions, there's a very large amount of them. You know, a lot of people always want more. You know, microtransactions, a lot of people just kind of overlook these use cases, but with what Drop's doing, it really is changing the way e-commerce and merchants and etc. Like, this is changing the entire landscape of what most transactions are. Microtransactions could be anything, right? It could be Amazon purchases. It could be really anything. And no, it's another use case that just kind of gets overlooked. But I think that these are the ones that everyone should be looking at because Hedera definitely is boasting a large amount of use cases like that that just get overlooked. But ultimately speaking, these are use cases that are very, very large in the grand scheme of things. And these are also use cases that, that will touch hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of billions of aspects of life. Meaning when you go to the grocery store, maybe you're, buying groceries that were sourced through, the supply chain that were powered by Fresh Supply, that were ultimately powered by Hedera. So like, again, everyday life will be affected by use cases like this. And that's what gets me very excited about companies and projects like this that are built out on Hedera, which, again, when we go back to the grand scheme of things, Hedera definitely is going to become, in my opinion, a leading DLT within the space with so much happening. Price action, yeah, price will definitely catch up at some point in time, in my opinion. But in the short term, yeah, I do expect some nice price action here. But ultimately, I know that's not going to be that exciting for most people out there because we are still anticipating $1 plus for HBAR, which I do think will come in time. But for right now, I think that we just need to remain a little bit patient and focus more so on the fundamentals that are happening within the Hedera ecosystem, which is very large in my opinion. So with all of that in mind, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and turn the free Discord down in the description below. So I hope that you all have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.